You are 32 years old. You live in a one-bedroom apartment in Arlington with gray IKEA shelves, a couch that sags in the middle, and a sink that leaks brown water for 5 seconds every morning before it runs clear. The kind of place real estate agents call efficient because they are too polite to say narrow, too polite to say tired, too polite to say this is what a government salary looks like when it gets fed into Northern Virginia rent and chewed to death. You drive a 15-year-old Camry with a cracked sun visor and a steering wheel that peels black flakes onto your palms in the summer. The air conditioner only works when the engine is moving. Red lights feel punitive. Your mother has started forgetting things. Small things first. The kettle on the stove. Her cardiology appointments. The day of the week. Then bigger things. She calls you by your father's name twice in 1 week. The neurologist in Fairfax uses gentle language and expensive nouns. Early onset. Aggressive progression. Experimental options not covered by insurance. You pay what insurance will not. That is how the math starts. Not with greed. Not with some cartoon appetite for yachts and cigars and Swiss accounts. It starts with numbers in a spreadsheet. A credit card bill. A memory care estimate. A hospital portal glowing at 1:14 a.m. on your phone while your ramen goes soft in a bowl on the coffee table. You work at Langley. Not the glamorous part. Not the field. Not fake passports and dead drops and rooftop handoffs in foreign capitals. You work in a climate-controlled room with badge access, stale fluorescent light, and coffee that tastes like burnt regret. You build target packages. You review metadata. You assess patterns. You write the language that turns suspicion into procedure. Your title is Target Development Officer. Your real job is cleaner than that sounds. Dirtier too. You help decide who ends up on a screen, who becomes a confidence score, who gets translated into a recommendation memo routed through enough layers of authority that no one ever has to say the ugly word out loud. You are good at it. That is the first bad thing. You are calm, fast, precise. You understand how to assemble fragments into something that looks like certainty. Phone pings, travel routes, association networks, repeated visits to the same compound at odd hours. A pattern, a signature, a threshold crossed. You sit in rooms with no windows and convert ambiguity into percentages. Your colleague Daniel sits 2 desks over. Daniel is 36. Former Army intel. Married. 2 kids. Lives in Springfield. Packs the same lunch every day in the same blue insulated bag. Turkey sandwich. Apple. Pretzels. He believes in procedures the way some people believe in scripture. He is methodical, irritatingly decent, and impossible to impress because he is not interested in being impressed. He double-checks every source trail. He annotates everything. He asks the questions that slow meetings down. He makes your life harder. He makes the work cleaner. He is annoyingly good. He tells you one afternoon, while you are both staring at a package that hinges on a thin chain of assumptions, that the job is not to be fast. The job is to be right enough to sleep. You think that is a luxury statement. Something a man says when his mother's prescriptions are not auto-refilling at 4 figures a month. You nod anyway. That same week, a contractor named Victor starts showing up more often. Victor is not really a contractor in the way the badge says. He moves through the building with the confidence of a man who belongs to somebody important. Mid-40s. Navy blazer. Cheap loafers polished too carefully. He has the still face of someone who never gets photographed in the meeting but always knows what happened in it. He starts lingering near your desk. Casual questions. Workload. Budget frustration. How federal pay bans keep bleeding talented people into the private sector. You deflect professionally. He keeps talking. He mentions he knows a consulting shop that values people with your exact background. Flexible advisory work. Better money. Nothing operational. Nothing disloyal. Just strategic perspective. The kind of harmless overlap Washington runs on. You tell him you are not interested. He shrugs like that was expected. 2 days later, your mother's assisted care quote hits your inbox. You stare at the number until it stops looking like a number and starts looking like a threat. That night, Victor texts from an unlisted number. He says dinner. Nothing formal. Just a conversation. You tell yourself conversation is free. The restaurant is enticing. Dark wood. Overpriced steak. Glasses too thin in your hand. Victor orders bourbon that costs more than your weekly groceries. He asks broad questions and never writes anything down. He talks about how everyone in this town monetizes what they know. Ex-senators, former generals, policy advisors, procurement people. Everyone schemes some version of the edge. He says he has clients who monitor geopolitical risk. They do not need secrets. They need texture, mood, directional signals. The kind of thing nobody could call classified if nobody was feeling dramatic. You say no 3 times in your head. Then he slides an envelope across the table. It is thick, cream-colored, heavy in a way paper should not be. He says it is a retainer for your time. He says there is no obligation. He says all he wants is a sanity check on a region of interest framework. General trends. Nothing tactical. He says the world runs on information asymmetry, and all he is offering you is a chance to stop drowning. You take the envelope. That is the first compromise. It is so small it barely feels like motion. A week later, he sends a spreadsheet to a burner phone he told you to keep powered off until needed. Cheap plastic. Blue screen glow. It lives in your kitchen junk drawer beside dead batteries, soy sauce packets, and a screwdriver you never use. He wants a simple correction. Not targets. Not names. Just whether one district in eastern Afghanistan is cooling down or heating up. Whether surveillance concentration is likely to increase or shift. Macro only. An informed nudge. You tell yourself this is weather. You tell yourself nobody dies because a map tilts 5 degrees east. You send back a note. Generalized. Cautious. Sanitized until it feels anonymous. 2 days later, $5,000 appears in cash inside your mailbox, folded into a grocery flyer. It should make you sick. Instead, it makes you breathe. You pay your mother's facility deposit. You cover the neurologist. You clear one credit card. The relief is narcotic. Not joy. Better than joy. Relief is quieter and more dangerous because it convinces you it is reasonable. The second compromise comes easier. Victor asks for timing ranges. Not strike windows. Not exact days. Just operational tempo. Whether review cycles on a certain desk are accelerating. Whether a specific valley is under heavier ISR attention. He says his clients price risk for cargo insurers and aid convoys and political exposure. He makes everything sound administrative. He makes corruption sound like project management. You start packaging the information the way you package everything. Trim the edges. Remove the fingerprints. No names. No codes. No raw documents. Only directional truth. A little north. A little sooner. A little hotter than last quarter. Enough. Money keeps arriving. Envelopes. Cashier's checks. Once, a duffel bag in the trunk of your Camry after you leave it in a mall parking lot for exactly 23 minutes. The bag smells like nylon and machine oil and fresh paper. You counted on your IKEA coffee table with the television muted and the blinds shut. Your hands shake once. Only once. The illusion of success arrives all at once. You move your mother into a better facility with windows facing a courtyard instead of a brick wall. You replace the Camry with a 3-year-old Audi you should not be able to afford, but now can. You move into a better apartment with real countertops and a gym no one uses. You buy sheets with a thread count people mention at dinner parties. You stop checking your bank app before buying groceries. At work you get sharper. That is the second bad thing. The corruption does not make you sloppy. It makes you focused. External pressure simplifies you. You sleep less, but move faster. You anticipate what Daniel will flag and preempt it. You know how to build cleaner packages because now you understand what information matters on the other side. You can feel the shape of a surveillance net because you have started quietly describing its edges to men you have never met. Daniel notices the apartment first. He helps you move a boxed bookshelf on a Saturday because he is the kind of man who says yes to being asked. He looks around the new place, the better neighborhood, the clean lines, the expensive coffee machine still in the box. He does not accuse. He simply asks how government work started paying Silicon Valley rent. You laugh it off. Inheritance. Family reshuffling. A small settlement from an old insurance dispute. You hear yourself stack lies like plates. Daniel studies you for half a second too long. He says he is glad things are getting easier with your mother. That lands harder than any accusation. For 3 months you live inside the relief. Then the trap closes. Victor stops dressing the requests in polite language. The burner phone starts vibrating at bad hours. At your mother's facility. In line at Trader Joe's. In the agency gym locker room while your suit hangs on the hook and steam curls off the tile. short messages, a district, a time frame, a question about prioritization drift. Then a name, not a target name. Worse, a source code name. You freeze. You call him from a parking garage stairwell that smells like piss and wet concrete. You tell him that line does not get crossed. You tell him there is a difference between strategic context and human source exposure. He listens, calm, bored almost. Then he reminds you about the envelopes, the bag, the messages, the restaurant camera, the garage camera, the serial numbers from one of the cashier's checks deposited into a side account you thought was invisible. He says there are copies of your text exchanges, audio from one dinner, photos of you collecting the duffel from the trunk. He says if you walk into security tomorrow, they will not call you conflicted. They will call you compromised. He says something else too. He mentions your mother's facility by name, not as a threat, as proof of reach. You realize then that you are not a consultant, not a partner, not even a co-conspirator. You are a delivery mechanism, a paid aperture, a human access point with bills. You are no longer a person, just an asset. The requests escalate fast after that. Route windows, surveillance blind spots, names of analysts assigned to a particular geographic set, which target packages are moving toward legal review, which ones are stalling. Then the worst ask yet, a confidence score. One number. He wants you to soften a package, not bury it. Just drag the probability down enough that a strike window slips. He says the person in question is valuable to his clients. He says a delay of 72 hours is all that matters. You say no. He sends a photo of your mother in the courtyard, taken from farther away than feels legal. You change the number. A single adjustment inside a larger matrix. 82 becomes 68. High becomes medium. Urgent becomes monitor. The package slows. Questions get generated. Daniel asks why your sourcing note suddenly sounds less certain than your draft from 2 days earlier. You tell him new ambiguity entered the stream. You cite source instability. You use all the right language because the right language is what you do best. Daniel does not look convinced. The delay buys Victor's client the time he wanted. 3 days later, there is an explosion at a provincial police station overseas. The classified afternote moves through the floor with that clipped, quiet intelligence people use when the damage is obvious and the facts are still settling. Casualties. Local partner force. A liaison officer. 2 Americans injured, not killed. The suspect network includes the package you slowed. You stare at the report until the letters blur. Nobody knows what you did. That should comfort you. It does not. Daniel comes by your desk near evening with 2 coffees. He sets one down. Burnt. Bitter. Familiar. He says the floor is getting messy. He says packages are moving strangely. He says maybe leadership is rushing bad assumptions, or maybe somebody is leaning on the wrong places. Then he asks if you are okay. Not suspiciously. Sincerely. You almost tell him. You almost put your head in your hands and tell him everything. The envelope. The phone. The numbers. The lie of relief. The way guilt feels less like fire and more like mold. Quiet. Spreading. Structural. But then your burner vibrates in your pocket. And you do what cowards do. You say you are fine. The final request comes wrapped in inevitability. Victor wants a full package. Not fragments. A target queue. Drone coverage rotation. Recommended strike windows in one specific corridor. He does not explain why. He does not need to. By now you understand the texture of catastrophe before it arrives. You refuse. He says Daniel has been asking questions. He says internal review is already sniffing around anomalies. He says there are 2 ways this ends. In one, you cooperate and survive long enough to maybe disappear. In the other, your file detonates publicly and takes everyone near you with it. Career, freedom, mother, everyone. Then he says Daniel's daughter's school name. Not as a threat, as a demonstration. That is when fear stops being abstract. You pull the material. Not everything. Enough. You move carefully. Too carefully. Late hours. Quiet printers. Sanitized notes reconstructed from memory instead of exported files. You know the system well enough to avoid obvious alarms. You build Victor what he needs without ever seeing the whole of why he needs it. You leave the package in a gym locker at a Marriott in Bethesda. Black duffel. Combination lock. The smell of chlorine drifting in from the pool. A little girl runs past in flip-flops, slapping wet tile while you stand there with state-level betrayal sweating through your shirt. You do not get the bag back. 2 weeks later, Daniel is gone. Not dead. Worse in some ways. Disappeared into process. Badge suspended. Pending inquiry. Quiet escort out of the building. Rumors bloom before lunch. Mishandled sourcing chain. Unauthorized review of restricted compartments. Potential contact irregularities. Nobody says traitor yet. In these places, language arrives in stages. You know instantly what happened. Victor burned him to protect the channel. Daniel was the morality you abandoned, and the system chose the easier story. You watch from your desk while 2 security officers walk him past the bullpen. He does not fight. He does not look broken. He just looks confused and deeply tired. As if the world has violated a contract he was dumb enough to believe in. His eyes find yours for half a second. Not accusation. Not yet. Recognition. Like he has finally solved a problem he did not want to solve. You feel something inside you go hollow. That night, you do the only brave thing you do in this entire story, and it arrives several months too late to count as bravery. You walk into a secure interview room and ask for counsel. Then you start talking. Not everything at once. Nobody becomes honest in a single sentence. You start with irregular contact. Outside pressure. Financial compromise. Then the burner. Victor. The requests. The score alteration. The package. Daniel. The room gets colder the longer you speak. The investigators do not shout. That would almost be merciful. They let you build your own coffin in complete sentences. They ask for dates, locations, amounts, devices, dead drops, restaurants, parking garages, locker numbers. Your own words turn into evidence while they are still warm. You cut a deal because people like you always do. Cooperation, reduced exposure, sealed portions, administrative language covering a moral crater. Victor disappears before they can grab him. Of course he does. Men like Victor live in the seam between institutions. They survive by being less real than the paperwork around them. Daniel is eventually cleared of the worst of it. Not all of it. Careers do not survive certain kinds of suspicion even when innocence returns later with better formatting. He transfers out. Lower visibility. No promotion track. Damage that cannot be invoiced. He never contacts you. You do not blame him. The resolution, if you can call it that, is a rented house outside Albuquerque under a name that does not feel like yours. Stucco walls. Desert light. Furniture chosen by someone else. Government relocation logic. You work remote contract compliance for a defense subcontractor that values discretion and silence. The salary is fine. The work is dead. You buy groceries at 6 in the morning to avoid crowds. You keep 3 phones and trust none of them. Every passing engine outside at night sounds specific. Every knock on the door feels pre-informed. You still check sidelines in coffee shops. You still map exits without meaning to. You still wake at 3:11 a.m. convinced you forgot to lock something that no longer matters. Your mother dies in a facility in Maryland under a version of your name she would not have recognized anyway. You are not allowed to attend publicly. Daniel sends flowers. No note. That is worse than a note. Sometimes you open the hall closet and look at the old burner phones in a cardboard box you cannot bring yourself to throw away. Cheap plastic relics. Tiny black screens. Silent now. Dead now. They look like toy versions of the choices that gutted you. You think about the first envelope. How heavy it felt. How reasonable it seemed. How corruption never announces itself wearing the face it keeps. It arrives dressed as relief. As necessity. As one bad month. As one exception. As one number changed because the world was already unfair, you were just trying to survive it. That is the lie. The truth is uglier. You were not dragged all the way. Not at first. At first, you stepped. Now you live in the after. No bars. No headlines. No dramatic confession in a courtroom. Just a long administrative twilight. A life reduced to aliases, compliance modules, and the permanent understanding that somewhere men you never met and men you did may be dead or ruined because you wanted a little room to breathe. You got the room. You cannot breathe in it. At night, the desert is very quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes every internal sound louder. Your pulse. The refrigerator hum. The old language of percentages and confidence thresholds still clicking around in your head like loose machinery. Sometimes you imagine Daniel at his kitchen table in whatever city took him, packing the same lunch into the same blue insulated bag. Turkey sandwich. Apple. Pretzels. Doing honest work in a damaged life. Carrying your choices in a career that should have been his and is not. That is the real sentence. Not prison, not exile, not fear. Memory. Memory and the obscene banality of survival. In the morning, you make coffee that still tastes like burnt regret. You stand in a kitchen that is not yours under a name that is not yours and read news briefs about drone strikes written in 8 dry lines of public language. No names, no details, just numbers. You understand better than most what numbers can hide. You close the article. You set the mug in the sink. You check the lock on the front door twice. Then you sit down at your laptop and go back to work because hollow things still have schedules and monsters, once made, do not need drama to keep living. They just need time.